Hello, this is Pastor Stan Lubeck. This is workshop number 14, how to multiply your ministry. You know, we cannot care for everyone in our church like they deserve to be cared for unless they're in a small group. The small group is our quality care system where everybody is cared for by somebody. Even in a small church, it's impossible for the pastor to care for every individual without creating a network of relationships where everybody is cared for by somebody. It's called delegation. So it becomes a high priority for pastors to equip the saints to do the work of ministry as Ephesians 4 instructs. As John Maxwell says, teamwork makes the dream work. The critical role of a pastor is to equip 10 people who can lead 10 people. This is what it means to build a team, as Jesus did, to multiply ministry through a team of leaders. Fostering community and quality care to every member begins with the need to multiply the number of small groups that are in existence. A church cannot have too many leaders or too many small groups. This is why the church must be a leader-breeder environment where there's a solid plan for multiplication of leaders. We see the need for leaders everywhere, in politics, business, the church. Shouldn't the church be the best environment for equipping the kind of leaders that our world needs so desperately today? I believe so. Leaders with character and competence and a genuine compassion are in short supply, and our society is paying a huge price. So how do we multiply leaders? Every existing leader must be reproducing a new leader for the future. When the new leader is ready, either the existing leader can launch out into a new group with a few people, or the new leader can recruit people to start a new group from scratch. If the existing group is rather large, then leading the group to, quote, birth, unquote, a new group is the best option. Many existing groups resist birthing other groups because they are deeply connected and want to avoid the pain of separation. I get that. In fact, if people are excited about the possibility of getting away from one another, there's probably a bigger problem in the group. So birthing is a good word for what takes place when a new group is formed because there's pain involved in having a new baby. Lamaze was developed to help women deal with the pain of childbirth as comfortably as possible. And so the following information will assist you in accomplishing this vital element of multiplication in your small group while making it as painless as possible. So just as aspirin is the active ingredient in many pain-relieving medicines, the active ingredient of a healthy and expanding ministry is equipping an ever-expanding team of leaders. When a new leader is ready to lead, that new leader is not dependent upon the size of the existing group that he or she is functioning in. The new leader should prayerfully begin to network to start a new group. The point is that the size or readiness of a group to multiply should not dictate the next step for a new leader who is ready to lead. Get them leading, get a group together and get them started. So when is a group ready, though, to multiply, to split into two groups or divide, or I don't even like the word divide, multiply is a far better word. So when the group is averaging 10 to 14 people in regular attendance at each meeting, when a new leader has been approved by a pastor or supervisor. Those in leadership know confidential information that can disqualify a leader, so don't bypass this important strategic step. By clearing the person through those in authority, it avoids the embarrassment of having to take the ask back, or worse yet, having people hurt by a leader who really wasn't ready to lead in the first place because of other issues. So once the potential leader has been approved, there is the completion of the required training and qualifications expected of a small group leader that is unique to each church. So pay attention to that and get the person through that process. So now, priming to multiply. How do you prepare for multiplication? The leader initiates a meeting with the new leader to discuss the multiplication process. Together they pray, discuss, brainstorm regarding who should stay in the current group and who should launch out as pioneers for a new group. The new group should begin with 4 to 7 people from the original group, and it is best if the apprentice takes over the core of the original group while the experienced leader functions as the pioneer launching out with the new group. Now the leader and the apprentice should be in complete agreement on this. Where there is difficulty in creating a good balance, the edge should always be given to the apprentice who doesn't have as much experience. So it is very helpful if the leader and apprentice are spending time over the phone and in person with the people who will go with them in the multiplication process. When this is done in the months leading up to the multiplication, there's confidence in the heart of the members, knowing that the person who has been providing quality care for them, calling them, looking out for them in the past will continue to do so in the new group. So when the actual multiplication takes place, the process is so much simpler because the people are already communicating and caring for one another as a subset of the larger group. Problems are compounded for multiplication when little or no planning or preparation takes place. People struggle when there is a sense of arbitrariness and lack of thought preceding the multiplication. I will never forget the look of utter shock and terror when, as we shared Chinese food for our last meeting prior to our multiplication into two groups, I looked across the table of wontons at a gal and said, "Karen, in these fortune cookies, we have put the names of the two groups, and which cookie you choose will determine who you go with after tonight." Of course, I was just joking, but I don't believe Karen appreciated my warped sense of humor. But I know that she did appreciate the fact that we had intentionally planned for her and her husband to multiply out with the couple who had loved them to within an inch of their lives. When multiplying family groups, extra care and attention needs to be given in regard to the relationships developed by the children as well. If there are only two teenagers in the group, it can be very healthy to keep those two families together so that these teenagers can continue their support for one another. Okay, let's talk about group preparation. Lead the group by saying, quote, "As you know, our group has been growing and our goal is to multiply in order to reach out and make more room for new people to experience Christ's love. This is a selfless step of faith by our group." So the greatest threat to Christian community is large, ingrown, and stagnant community. Larger groups struggle to provide the necessary time for everyone to talk. So we dream of launching out into two healthy groups in the near future, unquote. So share with the group your plan and the approximate date that multiplication will happen, and at least give them 4 to 6 weeks notice. So share with the group that no one will be forced to go or stay, and there will be many conversations to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Now let's talk about the personal touch. The leader and the apprentice should then talk individually with those they have selected to be in their respective groups, asking them to consider going or staying. Ask them to let you know their decision by the next week. Now, follow a multiplication process. The leader and apprentice must listen and lead. Being ready to answer questions and calm fears as change always involves some loss. Finalize the dates for the last meeting as one group and the first meeting as two groups, and make sure that everyone is in the know. Go the extra mile to over-communicate to the group on what to expect. There's an old saw that says what people aren't up on, they're down on. So communicate well and consistently in preparation for the preferable future of two groups. So let's talk about a 12-week Lamaze small group birthing plan. So on week 10 through 12, way out in advance, prior to birth, this is what I call the prenatal process. Start early discussing the vision for birthing the group. Listen to those who resist the idea. Gently remind people that this is central to our desire to make room for new people in Christ. This has been part of our vision from the very beginning of this group. So realize that the baby doesn't want to leave the safe and secure environment of the womb. You don't have to cry at people, but you get the idea. But real life is found only outside of the womb, on the other side of the scary birth canal. Birthing a group is certainly an expression of living faith that God would build his kingdom as we make room for new people. The apprentice should handle more and more of the group discussion time so people become comfortable with the apprentice's leadership style. Hiving the larger group into two groups, having subgroups meet in two separate rooms for discussion, people should be encouraged that no one will be forced to go with either group. It is very important that the leader and apprentice make contact with the people they think will be staying with them after the multiplication. On week 10, if one of the groups have only one or two people, often people will volunteer to move from the larger group in order to help maintain balance with the two groups. This helps avoid having to ask someone to go with a certain group out of obedience. Now let's talk about a birthing party. This happens week 7 out of this 12-week process. For this final meeting together, you might plan a potluck party or some other special activity, which is a good way to celebrate the multiplication of the group. People should fellowship together as they arrive and then go to 2 different areas of the home to have the first meeting separate from one another. Then come together at the end of the night to cut the birthday cake, celebrate, and pray for God's blessing for each group. Now, week 4 through 6 of this 12-week plan is the postnatal. Groups meet separately in different locations. Week 3, baby shower. This is 1 week after the birth of everything. This should be a great time of fellowship and sharing. Having new people in attendance encourages everyone to realize that the birthing process made room for these new people. People should be given the opportunity to testify to the blessing that the small group has been, and especially how quality care has been taking place in the midst of Christian community. Week number 2 of this 12-week build-up, these groups continue to meet separately. But then finally on week 12, or week 1 of this process, you have a family reunion. This is a time of connecting and celebrating what God has done with each group. By this time, each group is developing a personality of its own, and the group members have made the transition successfully. It can be used effectively to cast vision for the continual multiplication of each existing group as people see that new relationships are formed and new people are included when we are willing to go through the pain of birthing for the benefit of the kingdom of God. All right, next, solutions to the biggest obstacle preventing young families from getting into a small group. Hope to see you then. Bye for now.